whenever you're okay. Okay, so
do you edit it? Do you erase? Do you delete? Do you go back?
Somebody else will.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Not us. So today's Saturday, October 17th, 2015. My name's Osman Hernandez, and if you could just start off by stating your name.
Okay, my name is Irma. Guerra is my maiden name. Perez.
Okay. All right, and if we could just talk about a little bit about your family history, a little bit about yourself, where you grew up at. Just go ahead.
Okay, I grew up in San Antonio. I was born October 6, 1945. I went to school, all Catholic schools. I went to St. Anne's and St. Paul's and Providence High School. And then when I graduated, I went to the University of Texas in Austin. My dad had a drugstore in San Antonio. He actually was a graduate of the University of Texas in Austin from the College of Pharmacy in the early 30s. So he graduated with a degree in pharmacy, and he eventually built 4 different drugstores in San Antonio. My mom also attended the University of Texas. She did not graduate. She lacked about 6 hours to graduate because she went back to work, because at that time you could teach school when you had, she taught school, and she actually was even a principal. They made her, but she never did get to finish, which she always regretted. So I had a history growing up knowing that I would be attending the University of Texas. That was one of my goals, to go to the University of Texas. My siblings also attended the University of Texas. 2 graduated from there, and my brother went on to medical school in Galveston, and another one went to law school, also finished in pharmacy. My husband I met at the University of Texas, and he was in the College of Pharmacy, and that's where we met. We both met at the University of Texas. Later he went to law school at Texas Tech, so he's an attorney here in Fort Worth. Growing up in San Antonio I had a great childhood. Lots of family support, lots of cousins, aunts and uncles, celebrating. We had a lot of traditions. We celebrated a lot of holidays and birthdays and everything. So I have great memories of my childhood. We always knew that education was very important, and to attain any goals that you wanted, you had to really think about education. So although I was not a studious student all the time, I just kind of was happy to get by and have a good time in school, and somehow school came easy to me. I didn't really struggle that much. My grades were fairly good. However, when I went to the University of Texas, I thought I could still study the way I studied in high school. And so after being at the University of Texas 1 year, I got a letter from the dean saying, sorry, you will have to stay out a semester because you didn't meet the grades that you needed to meet. So that was a big blow to me, because my siblings and my parents always did very well, and that made me mature really quick. So I think getting that letter, you have to stay out for a semester, I was horrified, and I went back and I worked in San Antonio. I worked as a ward clerk for Santa Rosa Hospital, which they call them unit secretaries now, I think, but and I substituted in the schools. I did everything, saved money, and when I went back to the university, I became a dedicated student because I was wanting to graduate. My degree was in sociology with a extra sequence of courses that you could take then in the College of Social Work. So I got similar to what they get now as a BSW, but my degree was actually a BA in sociology. Graduating from the University of Texas, my first job was working in a residential treatment center for emotionally disturbed adolescents, the Devereaux Foundation. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was outside of the kind of the hill country of Austin. And that was an eye-opener because I was very naive and very young, and I was dealing with extremely emotionally disturbed adolescents that were runaways, used drugs back then at that time, suicidal, just all kinds of things. And but I liked it because it was a challenge. And then I also did some, I think I taught English and something else. They were all high school students. Anyway, they ended up closing that facility, and then I went to work at the State Hospital in Austin. So I've always done mental health, that kind of career, but the State Hospital, I worked there for a year, and then my husband finished his College of Pharmacy, and then we moved back to San Antonio and lived there for a while. I taught school, and then we moved to Del Rio, and I lived in Del Rio because he was working there, and this was during the Vietnam War. So first he got a occupational deferment, and then you get a deferment if you have children, then you have to have more than one child. You know, you're young, so you don't know, but they used to give all these deferments because Vietnam War was going on. Then the Vietnam pretty much ended. Then he went to law school at Texas Tech. So we lived in Lubbock for 17 years after he finished law school. And when we went to Texas Tech, I already had 2 children. One was 2 and one was 1. And then his last year of law school, I had another child, a son. I had 2 daughters and a son. And after another daughter. We have 4 children. I'm now 70 years old, and I have, of course, my 4 children, and we have 8 grandchildren. So that's a brief little nickel tour of my life, I guess. From, you know, kind of covered everything, living in San Antonio, moving to Del Rio, Lubbock, and came to Fort Worth. He opened up a practice here in Fort Worth in 1988 with 2 other attorneys from Lubbock. And he was going back and forth. They had an office in Lubbock and an office here. Eventually, he just stayed here. One attorney didn't come anymore, stayed in Lubbock. Another one, they broke off the partnership, and they both became independent. And he's been a solo practitioner of the law. And I have worked here in Fort Worth. I worked for the Museum of Science and History during a Soviet space exhibit that was the early 90s. And I was a volunteer coordinator. I was on staff, paid by the museum to coordinate volunteers to do the tours. There were 3 of us that were volunteer coordinators. So I did that here in Fort Worth. And then after that, I substituted some, and then I got a job at Meals on Wheels as a social worker, part-time. I've always worked part-time. I never built a career in any particular field. Was mental health. That's what I always went to, or social work, because that's what I liked. So, but I worked at Meals on Wheels for 15 years, 3 days a week, doing direct service, going in the home, putting elderly patients on the meal program, helping them find resources in the community and that kind of thing that they needed. And if there were no volunteers to give them their meals, the social workers made sure that their routes that they were responsible for had meals. So many times I was delivering meals as well as being the social worker, and all that goes with being a social worker. It's a lot, because you try to get them all the help, resources that they need in the community, and those are your clients, and you see them regularly, and you keep them on the meals as long as they need to be on the meal program. During all that time here in Fort Worth, I belonged to different organizations, boards, commissions that I participated in. That's it, because I've always believed in doing volunteer work, and I've liked volunteer work, and it's usually in social service agencies.
Hey, if you don't mind, I'm going to pause real